Hi Year 11. So in this video I'm going to talk you through writing your research task. Now it's obviously very different to an action plan, but the one similarity is you still only have 400 words. So there's no room for waffle, it needs to be straight to the point and include as much detail as possible in every sentence. So your task is to investigate the following. Recent research reveals that sugar consumption is a large contributor in the childhood obesity epidemic in Australia. Despite this, all around the country, kids set off to school with their lunchboxes full of hidden sugar. So our focus is not only on just sugar consumption in general in foods that we know there's a lot of sugar in, cakes and donuts and biscuits and soft drink, but also the hidden sugars and how they can often hide in kids' lunchboxes. Your research question is, why is there so much hidden sugar in popular lunchbox foods, and what are some alternatives? First of all, in the introduction, it guides you through the two key things you need to have. So 2 sentences, one for each would be good, or a couple for each max. How is sugar contributing to childhood obesity in Australia? So you'll find that there's facts about this. So include a sentence explaining, followed by perhaps a quote or a fact that you can find as well. Then secondly, making sure that you define, so what is the definition of hidden sugar? So hidden sugar opposed to just normal sugar. All right, and this is something that by now we will have discussed in class through the PowerPoint, but making sure you make very clear for the reader, you're not just talking about white sugar spoon onto the top of their Weet Bix, but hidden sugar, all right, and what that means and how it's different. Moving down to the discussion. Why is there often hidden sugar in processed foods? So what is the purpose? Is it for flavour? Is it because it's cheap? Is it to make it last longer on the shelves? Okay, doing some research into why do they put sugar there? What's the reason behind it? Secondly, how are these sugars hidden in these foods? So what sort of marketing tactics are used? What different words and labels for sugar is used so that the consumer doesn't necessarily know that there is a lot of sugar in what they're eating? Now, you can also add some primary sources here as well, perhaps the perspective of a parent or someone from the health nutrition industry, right from nurses, doctors, nutritionists, naturopaths, right through to people who work in supermarkets or food packaging, food design, anything like that. If you can think of someone, you might be able to ask them a couple of questions about whether they were perhaps aware of why there is hidden sugar in foods and how they're hidden, things like that. So focusing on these 2 points here, you might like to add some primary resources there if you can. Next section, the now analysis. So we've discussed why the sugar's there in the first place, because they're not necessarily just chucking in there to be harmful. There is reasons why and how it's hidden. We now need to analyse and provide examples, okay, so that the reader can see, yes, this is actually true what you're saying, that there is a lot of hidden sugar in these lunchbox foods. So you're going to provide 3 examples of lunchbox foods that contain hidden sugar. Okay, so places that we wouldn't expect it, perhaps healthy looking lunchbox foods. You would include an image of the food or the food label here, and then the packaging and an explanation of where the sugar is hidden, or perhaps a diagram or a label or circle around the words indicating where the sugar is hidden, okay, in that food. What you could also do, because for your prac you are choosing something out of a hat to cook, whether it's sweet or savoury for the lunchbox, you might like to include something that is similar to what you have to make an alternative for. So if you've chosen out of the hat yogurt, you might like to use yogurt for this research task as well. If you've chosen dip and crackers, you might like to find a dip that has some hidden sugar and use that as an example, okay? Yeah, so like I said, an image and then an explanation of where that hidden sugar is, times 3 examples. Recommendations. So now we move beyond just saying, well, so many foods have sugar in them. What can we actually substitute? What can parents do instead? So what suggestions can be made to parents to help them reduce or avoid hidden sugar in their child's lunchbox? All right, so 2 suggestions and giving a sentence or 2 to explain how they could go about it. So for example, maybe suggesting that they learn how to read food labels and explaining what exactly parents should be looking for. Perhaps you might like to suggest some sugar alternatives in home cooking, some different foods that they can use that still give nice flavour or slight sweetness without having lots of sugar. Or you might like to suggest some low sugar lunchbox suggestions. All right, this could actually include your healthy alternative that you're making for your prac as an example as well. Or you may like to provide some food swap suggestions. You know, what can they swap their flavoured yogurt for? They could swap for a chia pudding with this, this and this. All right, so you only need to suggest 2. These are just ideas. You might have other ideas other than those. They're to help get you started. You may also like to have some primary research here as well. Okay, if you're aiming for the A band, it is an excellent idea to have a primary source at least in here, whether it's just a parent or someone from the health and nutrition industry, doesn't matter. It just shows that you've researched beyond the secondary stuff and what's written to what people actually think. So primary research here could be maybe even a parent, you know, if you are making the suggestion about parents learning to read food labels and also suggesting some low sugar alternatives for cooking, you could then ask a parent, have you heard of these before? Were you aware of these? And see what feedback you get from them. Or you may even like to find out what parents do to try and reduce the sugar in their kids' lunchboxes already. They might be able to help and provide some suggestions, and therefore you can include their primary information here too. But here is another spot where you could include it. Now, being a research task, the reference list is very, very important. You need to make sure that you have in-text referencing, okay, for any key idea that comes from a source, whether you've worded it differently or not. If it's their idea, their information, you need to put in brackets after the sentence the surname and the year of publication, or if it's a website and there's not one person, the company name, or at the very least the website title name, and then the year, which is usually right down the very bottom of the website. Okay, and then you have a normal reference list, which is the same as a bibliography, except it's called a reference list because you're only listing things that you have referred to or referenced in text as well. So to aim for the A, you would want to have at least 1 primary source and at least 5 secondary sources on your reference list. If you have trouble with that, please ask. It is important to do it before your first draft, okay, or before your draft, so that if there is any issues with referencing, I can check and suggest ways you can improve it. Very hard to pass this task without referencing and a reference list because it's research. Hopefully that helps, and that's it.